Curious what exercises are helpful for proximal hamstring tendinopathy? In this video, we'll go over a step-by-step exercise progression. It is divided into 3 different phases, with the exercises in each phase gradually increasing in difficulty. So let's get into it. The first phase is isometric contractions, and what an isometric contraction is, it's when the muscle contracts but the joint actually doesn't move. So if we look at the biceps here, I can contract my biceps but the elbow or the shoulder aren't actually moving, so that's an isometric contraction. This phase is technically optional, and it really depends on how sensitive the tendon is to loading. For a tendon that's really sensitive to load, then an isometric contraction is a great place to start because we have a lot of control over how much load and also the position that we're loading the tendon in. If the tendon is able to tolerate a little bit of movement, then it's okay to start at the second phase. While the bird dog exercise is traditionally thought of as a core exercise, it can also be used for proximal hamstring tendinopathy to work on hip extension. To perform, we'll start in a quadruped position, which means that our hands are going to be underneath our shoulders and our knees underneath our hips. The leg that we want to work, we want to extend that leg out and then lift that leg up. And then we want to hold this position for 30 to 45 seconds. Obviously, when we're just starting, we might not be able to hold this for 30 to 45 seconds, but we can gradually increase the time we're in this position as we start to build up more tolerance. Additionally, we don't have to hold our leg all the way up into extension. As long as the foot's up off the ground, we're going to get a little bit of hamstring activation. So in the beginning, we might just have our foot just hovering off the ground or lifting up a little bit higher. Just depends on what our tolerance is, and then we could just build up from there. The long lever hold further increases the challenge on that hamstring tendon. The further your heels are from you, the more challenging this exercise is going to be. And these can either be performed on the ground or with your heels elevated on something like a chair. The benefit of having your heels elevated is that you have a little bit more range of motion to work with, but to start with, it's okay to start on the ground because you don't have to go into as much hip flexion. So to perform, we'll start by lying on our back, and then our heels are going to be on the ground and lift the hips up off the ground and hold this position. So when I'm here, I'm pulling my heels down into the ground, which will activate that hamstring. So I'm feeling it in the hamstring as well as the glutes as well. And then to perform them with the heels elevated, everything stays the same, but now I'm just pulling my heels down into the couch and holding this position. Initially, we want to try to keep the hips up into more hip extension. As we feel a little bit more comfortable in this position, we can actually work it into a little bit more hip flexion, which is a little bit more provocative for that hamstring tendon. So now we're just kind of holding just above the ground. The second phase is where we start to incorporate some movement. So if we look at the muscle contractions, there's 2 different muscle contractions that occur, a concentric and also an eccentric muscle contraction. So if we look back at that bicep, if the muscle is shortening as it contracts, then that's called a concentric muscle contraction. And then similarly, if it's contracting as it's actually lengthening, then that's actually an eccentric muscle contraction. And when we're looking at rehab for proximal hamstring tendinopathy, we want to do both the concentric as well as the eccentric muscle contraction. The bird dog exercise used previously can be modified to include some more hip movements. In terms of positioning, everything remains the same, but now what we're going to do is slowly lift the leg up off the ground and then slowly back down to the ground. When we do these, we want to perform them over 3 to 4 seconds up and then 3 to 4 seconds back down to the ground. Additionally, if we have ankle weights, we can use ankle weights to increase the challenge, or what we can also do is increase the range of motion by going up into extension and then also bringing the hip into a little bit of flexion as well. Again, trying to perform these slowly and then back down to that starting position. The long lever bridge can also be modified to include some more hip movement. In fact, we can do a glute bridge to start off with if our tendon is really sensitive as we start to incorporate a little bit more movement. So for this, we'll keep our heels closer towards us so our feet are actually going to be on the ground. That way we'll be using more of the glutes versus the hamstrings with this exercise. And then just slowly lift the hips up off the ground as far as we can go, and then slowly back down. So in this variation, we're primarily using the glutes to extend the hip versus when we bring those legs further out so our heels are just on the ground. Now we're using a little bit more of the hamstring and a little bit less of the glute to extend the hip up off the ground. To work into a little bit more range of motion, it's beneficial to have those heels elevated on a chair or a couch. That way we could just work the hip through a greater range of motion. So now we're going from more of a flexed position all the way up into an extended position and then back down. Again, when we're doing these, we want to load the tendon sufficiently, so we actually want to try to perform these pretty slowly. If we can, over 3 to 4 seconds up and then 3 to 4 seconds back down to the ground. The next exercise is a standing kickback, and this exercise is probably the easiest to increase the load on the hamstring tendon by either using a heavier exercise band or increasing the load on a cable machine. In a standing position, slowly extend the leg back as far as you can go, and then back to that original starting position. When we're doing these, we want to make sure that the movement is coming from the hip. There's a tendency when we do this that we want to try to extend that lower back. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, but we just want to make sure that we're actually loading that hamstring tendon by making sure that we're getting the hip extension and then back to that starting position. And also when we're performing these, we want to try to make the movement nice and smooth as we extend back and then return to that original starting position. So we don't want to see a quick kicking motion, or if it's a little bit too jerky as we kind of go through the movement, we just want to make sure that we have full control as we slowly extend back. So even if that means that we're not pushing the leg back as far as we can go, but gradually building into that range where we have that full control. The final phase is where we start to load the hip into more hip flexion. Hip flexion with proximal hamstring tendinopathy is usually a provocative position, so we want to make sure that the tendon is able to tolerate those loads, especially when we look at returning back to a sport or just general activities as well. The diver is a great exercise to start loading the hip into flexion. To perform, start on a single leg, so the leg that we want to focus on is the one that's going to be on the ground. And then from this position, we're going to reach out in front of us as far as we can go, bringing our other leg up towards the ceiling, and then back to that original starting position. When we perform this, we want to try to avoid any rotation in through the hips here. In the beginning, when we're still learning the movement, it's okay to have a little bit of rotation, but ideally we have that motor control where we're just reaching out in front as far as we can go, and then back to that starting position. And as we get more comfortable with the diver, we could try to bring the torso closer to being parallel with the ground. That'll make this exercise a little bit more challenging because we're going through a larger range of motion through the hip. Remember when we perform these that we want to perform them slowly so we have that full control through the full range of motion and that we're not quickly going over a position that we just don't have that motor control in. For the squat, we might actually start off with a box squat or a chair squat. That way we can limit how much hip flexion that we go into and gradually increase that range of motion as we feel more comfortable. So to perform, we want our feet at a comfortable distance apart and then slowly lower ourselves down to that chair or the box where we start to sit on it, and then slowly come back up from that position. And so again, what we would do from here is if I'm using a bar stool or something like that that's a little bit higher, I would move to a chair or something like that that's a little bit lower to increase that depth until we feel comfortable doing a full squat. And of course we can add some load to the squat as well, either using a kettlebell or a backpack to just add a little bit of challenge to the exercise. To really challenge the hamstring tendon into hip flexion, the deadlift is a phenomenal exercise. Traditionally, these are performed with a barbell, but we can also use an exercise band, a dumbbell, or a kettlebell as well. For the deadlift, the goal is to primarily move through the hips and not so much through that lower back. So a cue that's commonly used is that when we're in the standing position, we're going to chop our hips right at the crease, and that will move through the hips. So we're trying to push our hips back towards the wall behind us, and then to complete the movement, we just extend back up into that starting position. So when we're first learning this movement, we can also put our hands on our lower back here and then chop our hips again and then come back up to that original starting position just so we can feel us moving through the hips and not so much through that lower back. And then to load it with the exercise band, we'll stand on the exercise band and then everything stays the same here. So we're going to push our hips back, slowly lowering ourselves down to the ground and then back up to that starting position. And then again, pushing those hips back to the wall behind us, and then back up to that starting position. And then with a kettlebell or a dumbbell, everything stays the same. Push the hips back behind us, and then back up to that original starting position. When we do this, it's not vital that we actually touch the ground with the weight. We just want to go as low as we feel comfortable. In the beginning, we might only go to maybe like a 45-degree angle or whatever we feel comfortable doing, and then back up, and then gradually just increase the range of motion on those hips. So hopefully this step-by-step exercise progression was helpful, but it's also important to remember that there's not one specific exercise or one specific exercise progression for proximal hamstring tendinopathy. There's a lot of different variables that contribute to proximal hamstring tendinopathy, so everyone's rehab program is going to be a little bit different, and that's okay. But hopefully this exercise progression gave you some ideas, and hopefully you found it helpful.